Conversation. Prolactinoma can most basically be described as a rare condition in which a non-cancerous tumor of the pituitary gland in your brain overproduces the hormone prolactin. The major effect is decreased levels of some sex hormones like estrogen in women and testosterone in men. Although prolactinoma isn't life-threatening, it can impair your vision, it can cause infertility and produce other effects. Doctors can often treat prolactinoma with medications to restore your prolactin level to normal. Surgery to remove the pituitary tumor might also be an option. These are interventions that my guests have not been able to fully realize, leading to more than 10 years of a lack of intimacy in their marriage. Francis Gishuru and his wife, Mary Muthoni, join us now and are brave enough to talk about this on national television, and I thank you so much for coming and for your candor. But let's begin with happier times, perhaps. Yeah. How did you meet?
We met in our local church, Nairobi Calvary Temple. That's based in Buruburu, Phase 1. That's where we met, and we were there fellowshipping together until the year 2000. When we got married. And the journey was very good until the year 2007.
And before we get there, Mercy, what do you remember of those years, and how did he propose?
He was good, caring, and then he's more of a mentor. So every time he would mentor me in what I was doing, and I liked the way he was doing his things. And because he's a professional salesman, he taught me so much because I was in business. And so when he came down to propose for us to get married, I felt he was the right person, because every time he could mentor me and tell me, do this, don't do this, and all that. And that is one of the area I needed somebody to correct me.
But how did he propose? What did he say? The professional salesman, what did he say?
In fact, what I can say is that he talked me into being what he wanted me to be. So he came and asked me, Mercy, I want to marry you. And immediately I said yes.
Wow.
And one thing I remember is that when we went to our pastor to tell him we are planning to get married, pastor asked me, Mercy, are you sure you want to get married to Francis? And I told him yes, because our pastor had grown with us, and he was really a pastor, because he knew each and every one of us, our characters and everything. So this time he asked me, are you sure you want to get married to Francis? And I told him yes. He told me, Mercy, remember, in marriages, there are ups and downs. Will you be able to cope? And one question I remember even to date is when he told, we were together with him in the pastor's office, and he asked us, what if today you get into a marriage and you don't have children? Will you still stick together?
Wow.
And I told him yes, and he also said yes.
And this was before knowledge or diagnosis of your condition?
Yeah, we didn't know about it.
The first time we went for the first marriage counseling, and when we went to talk about our wanting to get married, that is the first thing he told us about. And nobody knew whether there was such a thing.
And I think the concern of our pastor, if I may mention that, is because my sister had a son. I married her with a son, and now because of the African way of thinking...
By your sister, you're referring to your actual sister?
Yeah.
You're saying your sister had a son?
No, her.
Oh, your wife.
My wife.
Don't confuse me now. Your wife.
My wife
had a son, not your sister.
In church we call one another sister or a brother. So let me bring it clear to you.
Yes,
my wife.
For the sake of my audience.
Exactly.
Yes.
My wife.
Right.
I married her with a son, and the reason why pastor was grilling and all probing and asking those several questions was because she had a son. And my wife had a son, and therefore there were those fears because there was a lot of struggle from my parents opposing that, and they had even gone to my pastor, and my pastor told them, no, if Francis has made that choice, let him continue with this choice, and I'm happy about it.
Okay.
I have no regrets about it.
All right.
I have a big son. He brought me a girl from Vihiga.
Okay.
And now I'm born. They have a small Gishuru.
Okay.
Who is very, so in my house,
So you're proud grandparents.
I am a good grandparent.
Okay.
In my house is Ingwe and the Thika United.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
But let's talk about when you noticed something was wrong, something was amiss. Talk to me about that.
It was the year 2007 May. I went to the house, and when I went to the house, my wife detected that there was some wetness on my breast. And she told me, my husband, what is happening here? What is the wetness on your chart, on the boo-boos areas? And I told her, I don't know even. So she told me, remove your chart, let me see what is happening. So I removed the chart, and she placed my breasts. They were swollen. We had not detected, we never knew that there was a problem. But when she placed the boo-boos, the milk started oozing out. Immediately she took her phone and called a doctor friend of ours and told her what is happening, told him what was happening. And then the doctor said, please, it's very important that you go and see a doctor in Kenyatta.
So prior to this, you had been able to live a normal married life and be intimate?
Intimacy was there. Everything was going on well until that time, 2007 May. Everything was going on smoothly. We had a good relationship. Even now we still have. But that time is when we detected why for the 7 years we didn't have a child, another child. And when we went to we started our journey to go to Kenyatta, I used to have headaches exactly at 1 a.m. And my wife could see that I'm very lazy, and I was ballooning, gaining weight. At night I cannot sleep until morning. When others are going to work is when I'm going to sleep, because there was a very severe headache. And then so the doctor organized we go to Kenyatta. I wasted 2 years in Kenyatta National Hospital. They couldn't detect what was the problem. Until one day I heard a doctor speak on a radio, a Christian radio, and I called the studio there and asked to get the contacts of that doctor. She is of Asian origin. I called her and I asked her whether I can go to MP Shah to see her. And that's when I went to MP Shah Hospital. And now, even entering her office, she detected what was happening. She asked me, is your breast producing milk? Which even today they are producing milk. Even before I came to this show, when I was preparing, I had to squeeze them because of the pain. And she told me to do some tests. And when I did those tests, I brought back the reports to her. And she told me I'm suffering from a condition which is a rare disease called prolactinoma.
Hold it there. Mercy, in those intervening 7 years, no child.
Yeah.
You didn't know that there was a medical issue with your husband, not with yourself. What was going on in your mind?
Let me say the biggest challenge those 7 years was, in African tradition, when you don't have children, the wife is to blame, the wife has a problem. And I went through all that. And even myself, I felt maybe I'm the one who has a problem. So what I did is I visited several doctors. I was given fertility medicines. They checked on me and they were telling me everything is okay with you. We don't see any problem. So until this, in fact, it was like almost 9 years when the doctor we went to told us that this condition is what causes infertility. That is when we came to know. It was about him and it was a medical condition.
Okay.
Yeah, so the 7 years, the 9 years, I was struggling with it, thinking it was I.
I understand the sensitivity of what we're discussing, and I understand if you will not want to answer my next question. But when was the last time you were able to be intimate, and how has this condition affected you? Because before you said you were able to have a normal relationship.
Exactly.
And then you had your diagnosis. What's happening now?
Nothing is going on between us because this prolactoma condition kills your libido totally. I've been on bromocriptine drugs and they only improved a bit, but still even with continuity of taking them, there is nothing going on, even today. In fact, I remember the last dose I did was about 2 weeks ago, and there's nothing happening. And now I have gone to various doctors in our city, big ones, famous ones, neurosurgeons, endocrinologists, because they have to deal with the endocrinologist and a neurosurgeon. And now they have said the only option now is to do a surgery to remove the pituitary tumor. And then I have to go out of the country overseas to be done that.
Okay, and we'll talk about
exactly
what medically needs to happen for you. But Mercy, how would you say this has affected your marriage?
The whole condition has affected our marriage. One, not having children. You know, in every marriage, what we are happy about is children. When you see you have children in the house and you are doing well. The second thing is the financial part of it. Once a sickness strikes in the house, I remember before it exploded, he was in business, I was in business. But 2 years down the line, all the businesses were down and we had to close down. So it has affected us so much because, and at one point, one of the things that affect us so much is when you know there is a solution, but you are not able to get it. Because even when the first doctor detected what it was, he told us there is cure for this condition.
Right.
But the cure, you need to do ABCD. But now the ABCD is what we have not been able to attain. So it has affected our marriage because there is nothing much we can do with ourselves. Like in the area that you see as a man,
Yes.
he needs to be active.
Right.
But with the condition, apart from the libido being low, apart from breast oozing milk, his bones he has low bone density. So even carrying the weight is a problem. So he can't walk for long. He has poor vision. He has hearing impairment on one side of the ear. So everything he does, in fact, to me, I have become like, I have to stick with him because 2 times he has had a heart attack. So in everything that you do, you just feel you need to be close to him and you can't do anything when he's alone.
Right. I still have what you said at the start of the show ringing in my mind, the question that the pastor asked you, and he said, are you sure you made the right decision? And you said yes then. I'm sure if I was to ask you that question, your answer would still be yes today?
Yeah.
Why have you chosen to stay in a situation that some would say, I can't handle this. I can't do this. I want more children.
I think in the first place there was love, and it was true love. It is what has kept me going. Because even in those years, even up to today, there are people who I'll go for counseling and they will tell me, what are you doing there with that man? He has crippled you. It is like he has become a burden to you. Why don't you leave him and move on with your life? But the love I have and the love I feel for him has kept me there. And every time I remember the words of the pastor, and I normally ask myself, even today I feel like going and asking him, did you have a revelation of what was ahead of us?
Did he know something and he wasn't telling you?
And he wasn't telling me. But in all that, I just comfort myself in the word of God and just pray to God to give me the grace. Because even at times I ask, what of if it was me? Because the first 7 years, before we knew it is him who has a problem, he stood with me. Even when the parents fought me, even when the friends and people abandoned him. You know, when you are getting married, everybody expects a child in the first year. So if there is no child, he is the first to be cancelled. What are you doing with a woman who doesn't have children? And so he stood by me. And every time anybody would accuse me or come to harass me, even the mother, he would just come in and tell me, Mercy, it's about you and me, not about them. So he stood with me for the 7 years. And so even now when I came to realize it was not me, I then said, I have to stand with him.
That's just incredible. Wow. And we are asking you on social media if you would stay in marriage without intimacy. I realize, of course, that our headline there is the loveless marriage. We put that in quotation just to be polite, if you like, for this evening. But as you can tell, this is absolutely not about a marriage without love. I think, Mercy, you've spoken and clarified that quite well. I want to introduce two guests we have joining us now. Jennifer Karina is a life coach, relationship expert and author. And Pastor Philip Kitoto is a relationship columnist and also the Vice Chancellor of the KAG East University. Thank you both for being with us. First, what do you have to say to this couple, Jennifer?
Well, I admire their courage. I admire their love for one another. I admire their commitment to one another. And even as they were sharing, I couldn't help but wonder what I would do in that situation, because it's a difficult one. But then I was reminded that when you go to the altar and say your vows, you say for better, for worse, in sickness and in health. And so they have lived up to their vows. And I still ask myself, when you have a relationship that doesn't engage physically. I mean, that's why I left my father's house, you know. I had everything, but this other thing was important.
You couldn't get there, right? I hear you.
How would I deal with that?
Right.
And I just processed through and I recognized, yes, there are very many different ways of having intimacy in a relationship. It's not just the physical. And I think that they have a great level of intimacy, a great level of understanding of one another. And so even though they have to make that sacrifice, I think they have a way of pepping one another and feeling good about being together. And they are blessed to have a son. So it's not like...
And a grandchild.
And a grandchild. Right. And more grandchildren are coming. So it's really not all lost. And I also think that in this day and age where medical science has become very advanced, they still have a chance to relive the lost years.
Right.
Yes.
Philip.
Wow. I must say that your story is so moving. I think personally I almost cried. I've talked a lot about marriages and about people getting in love. But I think this is true love. This is true commitment. And I think as you were talking, I could only but remember that love is a choice. It's no longer a feeling. Yes, some feelings come. But love is a choice. And I could listen to you saying about her and how you stood with her and her standing with you against all odds. It's but choice. I mean, you know you can walk out. You know that you can easily say, hey, man, this is not what I bargained for. I mean, I needed more than this. And I think more than that is to realize that marriage is more than sex. Marriage is more than the things that we get, even more than children. Marriage is actually a connection between two people to enjoy the deepest of friendship. And I think that's what you two are enjoying together.
That's very interestingly put, the deepest of friendship. And I just want to pick up on that because earlier you referred to her as my sister.
Yes.
And I was lost for a half a second. But in the absence of physical intimacy,
yes,
do you feel that those lines then in some way end up being blurred? And is it a positive thing in your own relationship to experience your wife now as a kind of sister? Do you mean that in a near literal sense, or were you being just polite?
I didn't get your question properly.
You referred to her,
as
your
my
wife,
sister, yeah.
as your sister.
Yes.
And I do understand, obviously, in our African culture, we can be polite and call our, wives sisters. Call your wife your wife.
Yes.
But nonetheless, in the absence of physical intimacy in the relationship,
Yes.
do you still see her very much as a wife, or does she take on an added role of being like a sister?
She is my wife. And in fact, let me say one thing. In the journey of marriage, when you say I do, Anne, you expect anything in the journey of marriage because you don't control things there. There are things that are beyond human control. Like when a sickness strikes like this one, it is beyond my control. And now, here my wife, I have even asked her, I have never even asked her, why haven't you given me a child even when I was active? Are we together? I have never even quarreled her or asked anyone. I could hear people talk outside there, but I could stop them. And I told them, in fact, this is what I told them. If you want to see the true man who married Mercy, try to touch her. You'll know even if there is no intimacy, she belongs to a man.
Wow.
And this man is Francis. So what I'm trying to say is this, Anne, is that even without the intimacy, I still see her as my wife. And as Philip knows, in Christian circles, we call one another as a brother and a sister, and it is allowed. And but she is my wife.
Okay.
Yes.
I think the problem with today's culture is that marriage, the end of all marriage, or the climax of marriage, you have arrived in marriage is about sex. And many times I've challenged couples. Suppose your partner gets paralyzed, or they get an accident, or something happened. I mean, I had never met someone who's been in a condition like, I've just given examples in the past. And I'm discovering more that people need to relate more on more other things in marriage other than sex or through children. Those who relate through sex only, when that is unavailable, they have another choice. They go to do something else. They find someone else who can do that for them. Those who relate through children only, when the children are out of the house, they have nothing to do with each other. So I think marriage needs to be a friendship where people can engage in activities beyond the bedroom.
Right.
So that they can become real friends, where they can share deep things like this. And they can cry with each other, but they can still look at each other and say, you know what, I still honor you, I still respect you, I still value you as my friend.
Right.
And I think that's where marriage needs to go.
I want to broaden our discussion now beyond the situations that one cannot control to those that can. Jennifer, as a relationship expert, I'm sure you've met people who end up with a breakdown in their intimacy, but owing to factors which could have been avoided, be it, well, it could be anything.
Yes.
But people arrive at the conclusion that not only can they not be intimate in conversation, but it extends to the bedroom. What would you say are some of the more prevalent cases that you hear that keep couples, apart?
Well, one of the greatest challenges where intimacy is concerned is one, a fear of intimacy, and two, performance anxiety. When you do get into a relationship, there's a fantasy level of how much you've been able to imagine, the kind of pleasure you're looking forward to. And many times I meet people who, even after the honeymoon, they don't want the marriage. Because what they were looking forward to, that climax they were hoping to get, that fantasy and the exposure of pornography that they have had, an exposure of masturbation they have had, and now you've got your dream come true, and somebody is supposed to make you feel much better than you have ever felt. It just collapses right there. It's all about expectations. It's all about unrealistic expectations, and the fantasy level that you perceive this whole thing to be. Now, another thing is about infidelity. A lot of infidelity, not serious about being committed, and defiling the matrimonial bed. So what happens is a lot of pain, bitterness, and frustration. So as a result, people disengage emotionally and physically. And you have a young 30-year-olds who will say to you, for the last 8 months, we have not engaged in any physical intimacy.
Right.
And I look at them with a lot of pity and sadness, because that is when they should be engaging 3 times a night.
Right.
That is when little things should not come on the way. Even as I say that, I wonder whether, Francis really was at that level of peak performance. Because what basically happens, things don't collapse overnight.
Right.
It takes a journey. You begin by not being able to match your partner's expectations, or it's not tonight for too long. Why? You are afraid of not performing because of what happened the other day. Now, basically, what happens to the other partner is that they become resentful because they feel rejected. And actually, that's what the issue is. Now, if Mercy would tell us, when you went through a situation of it's not happening, you don't quite think about the other partner. What you start beginning to feel, I have failed, I'm not attractive enough, your self-esteem just goes down the drain, and you're just done. You check out of the relationship because you're hurting yourself on a daily basis, chasing someone that is not showing any interest. That is the problem. Now, what needs to happen is communication. When people understand what the problem is, how you're feeling, and why you're not performing, then you are open to dialogue, and you're looking for solutions together, and then there's affection, appreciation, affirmation in that, then the relationship can be sustained.
Right.
But when it's absent and it's not happening, I will simply have to assume that you are enjoying this intimacy with somebody else.
Right.
And it's something that is not open. People never talk about it. People feel embarrassed and ashamed. So I commend this couple that they can come on national television and be able to say, I don't know
who else would do
who
this?
Who would do this? I don't know who would do this.
Just hold your thought for 1 minute.
Yes.
Philip, she has rightly said that Kenyans, by and large, as an African culture, we're still pretty reserved sometimes, even with each other in a marriage. How do you know that what you are going through in your marriage is beyond what you could resolve one-on-one in conversation and needs the help of an expert of some kind?
What I tell both couples is that the best place to begin is start with each other. Look for ways to not be blaming the other person with the particular issue. If it is sex in the marriage, instead of blaming, talk about it. Tell them, this is how I feel. I did not enjoy the way I thought I would. So when you establish that platform where the other person doesn't feel condemned or manipulated by what you're saying, it's most likely that they are going to speak. And I normally would say that if you have tried to deal with the issue about 3-4 times and you're not seeing a headway, before it becomes too tough, try and look for somebody you trust. Somebody you trust could be your best couple, if you trust them that much, or your pastor, or a counselor that you trust. And before you go there again, make sure that the two of you are on the same page, in agreement, because you can go there and you become the one who talks because the other person feels that they were pushed into that. Because sex is a little bit from not just an African cultural perspective, but it's not something that people would want just talk about. Yeah, you know what, yesterday my wife did this, and I couldn't do this. I mean, people feel, and you're
some reservation.
Yeah, you're making me feel that you're undressing me before people. So agreeing that this is what we are going to do, it helps the other person to actually be in the place of wanting to share. See, there could be issues of trauma where they have never shared with anyone. Maybe they were seriously abused, and that has affected their performance in marriage. Maybe it's just their own fears because of what they were told. You know what people talk about, old wives' tales?
Right.
And they get to bed and they're stiff. Nothing happens. They can't penetrate, nothing happens, they are stiff. And some people have been like that for 3-4 years. And they're wondering, what is wrong with you? When they are not in bed, they are so good together. But the moment they get to bed, this person is frightful. So I think getting to the bottom of it, and if you can't get it 3-4 times, you can't seem to get to talk, try and get someone else.
There are those who may be watching right now and saying, we have an unspoken agreement, and we hear a lot about that. You go, you do your thing, the other one does their own thing, they meet in the evening in the bedroom, and we all assume nobody knows what happened about anything, you know. And they get along just fine in terms of you're raising children together, perhaps running businesses, going about normal life. But when it comes to that, there is a spoken or unspoken arrangement. Is that healthy?
Not at all. Not at all. But it's a reality. I've met those kind of couples where you just agree that we are not in tandem here, so you do your thing, I do mine, and let's live life. It's not healthy. Because you are escaping the real issues. And it is important to address what the real issues are so that you can build on your intimacy. Now, when the physical aspect is challenged, really it's one of the most crucial factors where men are concerned. A woman can live without the physical, but will always desire to have affection. Now, in the absence of the physical, affection then becomes a challenge because it's, I'm not attractive enough, I'm not good enough, and so there comes in the challenges. So it's true, that's a reality, but is it healthy? Absolutely not. So what needs to happen? Address the issues. Find out exactly what needs to happen and do it. And then also, it's not good to concentrate on one aspect of the physical. You need to go beyond that and recognize that relationships require recreational intimacy. What do you do together and get excited about? It needs the spiritual aspect, and that's one of the things that have kept this couple together. The spiritual intimacy is absolutely very, very important. Intellectual intimacy. Do you stimulate one another at an intellectual level and feel connected? Are you, do you have a social intimacy of networks that like-minded people that spur you and you continue being in this, and then it's summed up by emotional intimacy. When everything is a tick in every other area, even when the physical is not at its optimum, you will find that the levels of intimacy in that relationship are very high. But when in all those areas it's a 0, 0, 0 or 2%,
right,
even the physical cannot work. What am I saying? Sometimes the physical is a sum total of the levels of intimacy, the interaction, the communication, and just the general healthy of a relationship.
Right.
So it's not just physical intimacy has a lot to do with your mind. Are you comfortable? Are you happy in this relationship? Are you connected in other areas? Yes, we are. And then here you can slide along. But I'll tell you this.
Right.
A lot of other young people are getting married, but getting married with a condition that they already know they have. And then after the marriage, it presents itself on the table.
So my question then is, can two people be so active in the bed, but be very pathetic friends? Can two people be so mechanical in their sexual activity, but they are so unhappy in their marriage? And the answer is yes. And so I think the whole ball game is all about bringing a balance, bring a balance and ensuring that sex is both communication and relationship. And that means it can happen. You can, sex is in the mind. You can have a fulfillment of being with your partner, like the two of them are having. There's a great deep intimacy that is happening between them, although they have not been to bed. But that I don't mean that they are fantasizing. I completely understand.
You're talking about it being deeper than just body. It is soul, spirit, intellect, so much more. Yes.
There's something I wanted to add on to what the panelists here have said. To me, I think physical intimacy is just a small component of what makes a marriage successful. I think the foundation of a successful marriage is love. Love sustains even when all the other things are not working right. Today, and there are many people who are healthy, who have the finances, they are doing well, according to us when we look at them. Are we together? But their marriages are in problem. All right? The intimacy is there, everything is there, but their marriages are not working. But in a marriage that is founded on true love, that marriage, regardless of whatever strikes that marriage, those people will go to any length.
I am told I'm absolutely out of time, and it's so unfortunate because I feel like we just got to the good stuff. But Francis and Mercy, the procedure that you want to undergo, Francis, is a costly one?
Yeah, it's a costly. We need 3 million so that I can fly to India, so that they can remove the tumor in the brain. They also detected I have a mass in the esophagus a few weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago. Also done another MRI. They have detected that I have something also growing on my left leg. They need also to take me to the theater to gauge it out and take it and see whether it is cancerous or not. The overweight you see me with is because of this condition. I'm weighing about 150 kgs right now, which is giving me even heart attacks and what have you. So I'm required to raise about 3 million to go to Medanta, India. And I am appealing to Kenyans who are well-wishers, people of goodwill, to help me raise that fund. As you heard, I'm a pastor, and Pastor Kitoto here knows.
If they want to help you, how can they do that?
And now, I have a pay bill. My pay bill where somebody can assist me is 450,977. My pay bill number, again, let me repeat, is 450,977. We also have an M-Pesa line, which is 0722 675773. I'll repeat again if you allow me, Anne. The pay bill number where you can throw your support or your donations is 450,977. 450,977. M-Pesa line is 0722 675773.
All right, and of course, I mean, our audience can contact us if they want further information on that. We are...
By the way, we have also started a Facebook page Somebody can go on Facebook, Pastor Francis Medical Fund, and you're going to get all the details there.
Okay, and so you can do that. We're out of time, I can't believe, but we were asking you a question this evening, whether you would stay in a relationship that lacked physical intimacy. The poll results in 42% saying yes, 58% saying no, and we're just going to take a look real quick at some of your feedback tonight. Here we go. Can't stay because I'll be forced to source intimacy from another person. Why pretend? Move out and find love. Intimacy in a marriage is like wheels on a car. Without it, you're at a standstill. And when you're at a standstill, passion and love does too. I suppose standstill is what you're saying. If children are involved and if he treats me with respect, I will stay.